It happens to almost every knitter and crocheter every single summer, and that is the dreaded summer slump. We want to work on our projects, but for some reason, we just don't. And oftentimes for me, especially, like, I don't necessarily want to be working on a super warm sweater or a big blanket or any of those like other projects that add more heat to already hot and sticky summer days. So I wanted to share with you the 9 types of projects that I would consider my summer slump busters. I'm just not someone that likes the cotton or bamboo tees and tops. I don't know, I don't care for them typically. I feel like they're cute on other people. I just don't personally like wearing that close to skin, and they feel heavy on me personally. So these are alternatives to tees and tanks and that sort of stuff if you don't want crocheted or knitted tees and tanks. So the first type of project that I think is great for a summer slump buster to get back your little bit of mojo on crocheting or knitting and get back into the groove if you still want to work on stuff. And for me, that would be anything baby. So whether it's a baby blanket, because those are typically lighter and use a lighter weight yarn, or even smaller little wearables like little sweaters, booties, gloves, hats. They work up so quickly that they're a lot more bite-sized things to kind of keep that creativity going and keep our hands moving, still be able to enjoy the craft that we love so much throughout the summer without it being so burdensome. And sometimes when you get those little quick wins and quick easy completion projects, it feels so much better and it's a lot easier to get back into the swing of things, especially going into fall. So if you happen to see one of my recent videos where I was swatching for a baby blanket for what we were hoping was going to be a strawberry shortcake themed baby shower nursery blanket, that sort of stuff, the theme has changed. And if you saw on my community tab, I was being a little bit intentionally secretive on whether it was just we're changing themes or if there's a reason we're changing themes. And if you were also hoping for some girl energy and that we brought the girl energy for my hairdresser, it turns out the baby girl is going to have a big brother first. So we do hope, and she is so very glad that she is actually having a boy first and hopes to have a girl later on, because even for me, I have an older brother, and growing up I just thought that was the best thing ever, and I'm so glad I have an older brother and had grown up with an older brother. And so she is so happy and over the moon and has elected to do a teddy bear theme. So I thought this was a really good it's got the tans for some teddy bears and the blue that's a little bit muted and not so pastel-y on the nose baby, I mean, it's kind of a pastel, but it's more of a denim-y pastel. And speaking of teddy bears, the next item on the list that I would suggest is amigurumi stuffed animals plushies. They're typically a little bit smaller, or at least they're not, draped over your lap. So I'm hoping to maybe have the time and energy to also work up a teddy bear. At the very minimum, I wanted to make sure I got at least a baby blanket done. And so if I get around to making a teddy bear to go along with this baby blanket, then it's just, icing on the cake, cherry on top, whatever saying you want to go with. I should actually look at some of the boucle yarn that's on sale at Knit Picks right now and see if they have a tan that might go with this, because having a fuzzy teddy bear would also be super fun. I don't know. Anyway, there are all sorts of stuffed animals, plushies, amigurumi that you can make, and I think that is a wonderful summertime project to work on that doesn't, take up your lap and heat up and stick to you and all that icky stuff that we tend not to want to crochet or knit for those reasons. Next up is going to sound a little bit strange, and it feels weird sometimes when I'm making this type of project in the summer, because I'm certainly not going to wear it in the summer, and that is socks. So if you're a knitter, obviously the world's your oyster with socks. You have probably no problem picking out socks or a pattern for that. This, I will say, for the crochet side, the best sock pattern that I have come across so far is from Olga Platava. and I have done the full pattern review on that. If you missed it, I will make sure to link that at the very end of this video. If you didn't want to do socks and you just wanted to do slippers, that would also be a good alternative because crochet tends to lend a little bit better to the slipper side of footwear better. And I think, you know, if you even wanted to get a jump on if you are a Christmas gifter and you want to do, well, okay, you know what I mean. If you gift knit or crochet for the holidays, slippers are a great project. They're stretchy enough that they're forgiving if you don't quite know the person's shoe size. I don't know, I just think those are nice things to also have, and they're portable, so if you're working outside or in a knit group and doing patio or something like that, I think that socks or slippers would be a great project. Moving to the other extremities, you could also do your mitts and gloves, mittens, that sort of thing. I know it still sounds crazy to be doing all of this winter-ish gear in the summertime, but because it's so small, and especially if you use chunkier yarns, they go so quickly. It's, again, those little quick wins. They're not weighing you down. You really only need maybe a 50-gram ball typically per sock or per glove or mitten. It kind of really depends on the pattern. But even then, it's just easy. And then once winter does come, you don't feel like you're racing against the clock to get stuff finished, and it's just there, ready to wear when the snow starts flying and the wind starts blustering. And I don't know, I guess maybe if you don't want to jinx it, then maybe don't make these things. Again, with the winter wear, I know, is hats, but you know, I could do hats any time of year. And honestly, you could even do lighter weight hats or more fall hats. They don't necessarily need to be the super most warmest, chunky winter, below 0 Fahrenheit, you know, loving hat, or not loving hat, but you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be anything like that. There are a lot of great, like, springy or even lacy kind of options. There are so many types of hats that even working them up in the summer don't feel crazy. And I guess if you're a headband wearer, you could do headbands, but for some reason, the kinds of headbands that go like all the way around your head, for some reason they just always slip. And if I'm going to wear a headband, it just needs to be like the hard kind with like the little grippy stuff on the inside. That's, I don't know, my hair's too slippery for any kind of scarfy thing. And speaking of scarves, you could do scarves in the summer, and that would be another, especially if you want something mindless, because scarves can at some point feel like you're crocheting or knitting into a black hole. But if you're someone that likes to go to, say, baseball games or anything like that, and you want something mindless to keep your hands busy, but not feel the pain of like, oh my gosh, this scarf is taking freaking forever and ever and ever and ever, and when is it ever going to be done, and what's the shortest I can get away with and still have it be a scarf. So I think for the summertime, for those mindless days when you just want something while you're watching a baseball game, soccer, any of that sort of stuff, I think scarves are great. I'm not gonna get started on the Sophie scarf. It's not my jam. Another type of project that I will work on pretty much any time of year, especially if I just need that like palette cleanser, something quick, especially after I've worked on like a very long, I don't want to say tedious project, but you know, the projects that take longer is any kind of kitchen towel or dishcloth, just working it up in cotton. These are great to have. I, make different sizes of them. Maybe I should make standard sizes of them. I don't know. But sometimes I just want smaller ones for small spills to wipe it up really quickly. So dishcloths and kitchen towels at any given time work. And obviously I keep them around. This could sound super weird to some people to work on holiday decor during the summer, but if you're someone who truly loves the holidays, I don't see anything wrong with it, whether you're making garlands or little decor pieces like those stuffed pumpkins that I make a lot of times, or like that little Grim Reaper. I think especially by August, I'm starting to get that, like, I want it to be fall now and have some crisp, cool days. And so that's when I start really latching into the fall decor as early as August, genuinely. So I have no problem working on that sort of stuff in the summer. And obviously, like, you don't have to work on these things in public if you're like, don't want people to make fun of you or think you're weird because you're working on a Christmas garland or stocking or anything like that in the middle of summer. This is, and even then, who cares? Like, it's their problem if they think you're weird for working on holiday stuff now, because why not get a jump on stuff instead of doing what most crocheters and knitters do, which is waiting until it's like crunch time, and then we impose these ridiculous kind of deadlines in our own heads, and we make them up, and we want to get it done by a certain time, especially for gifting stuff. It's just like a whole thing. So I don't see anything wrong with starting your holiday decor in the summer. Number 9, we could call this a cheat project. I don't know if you could call it necessarily a project on its own, and that would be making squares. Whether it's granny squares or any of the other types of square patterns out there, whether you're doing, again, a granny square or like a 12-inch square or anything. If you like the idea of doing squares, I feel like doing those, again, collecting them and doing those little bite-sized squares throughout the summer really does help them to add up. And if you aren't telling yourself you need to piece them together in the summer, then you just keep collecting them and making them and doing as you please, and you can do different patterns. I know I've had it in my mind that I really wanted to get that granny square deck of cards, and so I probably should order that at some point, or should I save it for my Christmas list? Because I say I want it, but will I actually, work on them anytime soon, because I have plenty of other stuff to work on? I don't know. So maybe that is a Christmas list item. Anyway, I think working on squares and just collecting them until you hit those frosty days when you actually feel like sewing them together and creating those blankets or a square cardigan, because not the hexagon cardigan, but like the granny squares where you place them all over and then, seam everything up. You could make squares out of that. And sometimes even just making squares to make squares feels good, and you don't necessarily have to have a project in mind. I know that feels weird because I know I don't like to have a ton of whips. I know we're still working on getting the whips tamed from my resolution in January, but as much as I don't necessarily want a ton of whips, I don't necessarily consider those a bunch of whips unless you start a bunch of squares and don't actually complete any, no, just complete the squares as you go, collect them up, and then, you don't have to have that inspiration until you see something or someone else's project that you're like, wow, I have all these squares, I don't even have to do them, I just have them, and I can go ahead and make the thing that someone else has made, or the inspo, or whatever. And so it's a little bit of a cheater project, but I really do think that you could have a lot of fun just working up squares throughout the summer to keep that momentum of our crocheting and knitting going throughout the summer. I know I have slowed down significantly, as have my videos, because, I'm not crocheting or knitting as much because it's summer and it's okay to be outside and okay to be doing other things. And, obviously, if you're doing markets, you're probably doing market prep and that sort of stuff and amigurumi typically with that. So while I was going through all of my Ravelry projects to put up on the screen and have good examples of, as well as other projects on Ravelry, I came across a bonus number 10 Summer Slump Buster project type, and that would be bookmarks. And I'm a reader, so I'm going to use them anyway. I kind of forgot that, that was a good idea for the summer. What I like about bookmarks too is you can often learn newer techniques or types of stitches, and it's, again, super bite-sized. It's not super pressury or very daunting. It's just a little bookmark. And also it's another great thing to have on hand, and you can just make whichever kind you like, or if you have coworkers or acquaintances. So that way, if say someone in the office decides, or, at a coffee group, knit night, whatever, if they're all like, hey, I got everyone ornaments, or I made everyone this, or something like that, you can be like, oh, you know what, that reminds me, I also, did that. And they're often, easily achievable in a single afternoon, honestly. So I highly recommend bookmarks. And also, there are some absolutely hysterical bookmarks out there. just go nuts. These are just some things and some ideas, even for myself, that I can work on throughout the summer without feeling so bogged down by heavy projects. And all of the ones that are a little bit on the heavier side, they can just wait until I'm in the mood to finish them off, and that's perfectly fine, even if it doesn't actually, you know, reduce the number of whips that I was trying to reduce since January. So anyway, I will actually do a check-in next month on that as a little mid-year review of where all of those old whips are at. And of course, if I missed your favorite type of summer project, go ahead and tell me about it down in the comments below so I can have more inspiration and projects on the hooks and needles and stuff. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Don't forget to check out that sock pattern review right here, and I cannot wait to visit with you in the next one. Bye!